Welcome to the Everyman Commentary Podcast. I'm your host, August Mayroff, founding editor of the Everyman, and I am joined today by a special guest, Dr. Adam Ellwanger. Adam is a professor of English over at the University of Houston, downtown Houston, and a frequent contributor to a host of publications, including The American Mind, Chronicles, and The Blaze, as well as Fox News and now Unheard. Besides writing many fine essays, Adam has published several books. There's Metanoia, Rhetoric, Authenticity, and the Transformation of the Self, a book I actually have, as well as the 1619 Project's Attack on Identity, Technocratic Power and the Death of the Political, The Rhetoric of the Secular Apocalypse, The Paradox in Paul, and Voluntary Disappearances. All these books are available for purchase at Amazon. I invited Adam today to the podcast to discuss two recent essays of his. One that I referenced in our last episode that discusses leftist messaging versus the actual leftist positions, and the other concerned Trump's plans to create American monuments and making American history great again. MAGA. With the Columbus Day approaching, I couldn't think of a better person to explain the state of today's public discourse, our shared history and identity, and what to expect from the left. So, without further ado, let's get started. Adam, once again, thank you for coming on. I
Thank
wanted to
you for
begin by
Thanks
asking
for the
you.
invitation.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, I wanted to begin by asking you about the implosion of California gubernatorial candidate Katie Porter. You said you weren't following this, but hopefully you got brought up to speed. I just think it's an interesting story, just from kind of a rhetorical, political perspective, just how this person had everything going and then just kind of ruined it. But okay, here's kind of my setup here. I find this hilarious. I find it telling, but maybe this won't mean anything. So we got to be open to that. And she'll be elected anyway because she's a Democrat or something. How does this square with your argument that I mentioned about Democrat messaging versus Democrat arguments?
Um, I'd start by saying you said that her campaign has imploded. I'm not sure that we're there quite yet. If I had to guess, she's gonna win. That's my money. But I would actually argue that, of the two recent pieces of mine that you've mentioned, that the videos that have come out of her acting like an idiot uh, are actually more indicative of the other article that I wrote on the rhetoric of the salon versus the rhetoric of the saloon,
Ooh.
which I see as the two major types of rhetoric that we see in political discourse today. The rhetoric of the salon, of course, is the polite, rule-based sort of good faith dialogue where we use reason and we argue in good faith. And then the rhetoric of the saloon is the rhetoric that doesn't care about rules. The form of discourse is just operating to win. And to your question, I think in these Porter videos, what we see is typical Democrat MO, right? They want to be the representatives of salon rhetoric, the polite, deliberative democracy model of discourse and debate. But what we see is that when the cameras are off, they're really devotees of the saloon, right? The anger, it's the lights aren't right, get out of my shot, this sort of thing. Very aggressive behavior. And I think that there's a metaphor in there for the Democratic Party writ large, which is that the messaging that they want to convey to the public is we're the adults in the room, right? We're the ones who are open for rational debate. But it really is just a pose, and that in fact they are much more interested in fighting to win. The rhetoric of the saloon, heuristics, an agonistic sort of debate, whatever you want to call it.
Well, okay, I want to dig into this because I would agree with you. There seems to be like two aspects to this. Because another big kind of like issue among Democrats, but among the right as well, is like authenticity, right? So you say saloon, and when I think saloon, I think what is it called? Barstool, Republicans,
Yes.
Portnoy, these types of people, where it's like, okay, it's down to earth. It speaks to just kitchen table issues. And I mean, does this qualify as saloon, or are these still pretty formal issues that politicians can discuss in a policy-based manner? Um, and what do you say to the defense that a Katie Porter or any of these people make when, when a video comes out like that, they'll just say, "Oh, well, that's just me being honest. It's a true moment, but it makes it more human. It's humanizing." Can that work? Can they make that excuse? Like, well, yeah, it's saloon rhetoric, and I do salon rhetoric. I do both because I'm very, broad-minded that way. Or is it just like, well, I don't know. They're letting their guard down, and they're actually just there's not much going on there.
They can make that argument, but I think it would be less effective than it was in the pre-Trump era. I think that you mentioned authenticity, and I think that this is the tell. Before I use actual quotes, I want to make sure that a little profanity is okay on
Oh,
your
sure, I
program
guess.
here. All right. So the Access Hollywood tape,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Grab them by the pussy. The left melted down over this, but the right didn't. And I think that the reason the right didn't is because they knew that Donald Trump was a denizen of the saloon, right? And so what we saw is, oh, what we're seeing publicly is what he is in private. And I think that the disjuncture really comes when we see this divide between public and private, where the two images of the person are very much at odds, and that conveys an inauthentic ethos or identity. Now, whether or not it'll hurt her, like you said, that's another question. We are talking about California, and we're talking about Democrats. So who knows?
Well, okay, but this kind of falls in line with like a lot of celebrities that got kind of outed. I'm thinking like Ellen DeGeneres, just a few years ago, everybody loved her. They thought she was funny, and pretty nice. And then everybody's favorite lesbian, and then I guess it came out that she's pretty mean to her staffers.
Yeah.
And now she's gone. I mean, we don't hear from Ellen anymore. But then again, you have like, who's the Minnesota person? Amy Klobuchar.
Hmm?
And, she comes out and she runs for office. And I mean, I'm honestly not sure because there was the same stories. Like, she threw salad bowls at people. I don't know what's wrong with these people, but okay. Yeah, she was just like, yeah, just kind of very mean and, rude to her staff. And stories like that came out. And I'm honestly not sure if that's what knocks them out of these races. And then, well, okay. And that's the thing. It's like, call me a normie, but I was always told, okay, the people who win these elections are people you want to have a beer with. Um, you know, I don't know if I'd want to. I mean, I'd still want to have a beer with Ellen. I mean, even though she's probably a terrible person, she seems pretty funny. Um, I don't think I'd want to have a beer with Amy Klobuchar. I'd want to have a beer with AOC. She seems pretty fun. Um, and then definitely with Kamala, even though she was pretty mean to her staff. There's actually, yeah, there's like a running theme. They're always mean to their staff, but I don't know. This woman, Katie, oh, I forgot her name. Wait. Well, anyway,
Porter.
I would want to have a beer with her. She just seems like a really kind of mean, nasty person.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I think that that's the ethos of the Democratic Party now. That's what we expect, and it goes back a long way. Barack Obama talking about bitter clingers, holding on to their gods and their guns. Hillary Clinton with the basket of deplorables. These these moments have been, seized on by the right, but they are whitewashed by the left as if they're anomalies. In fact, this is their bread and butter, and it's meant to signify the superiority that they have over the people that they would rule if we would let them. Um, so who was it? I think it was Gillibrand. I may be misremembering that, but I think she ran for president or ran for the nomination in maybe 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that clip. Most people seem to have forgotten it, but I just thought it was hilarious where she's doing her barroom thing, right? She's in like a restaurant for a rally, and this young woman is like trying to get through the crowd, and Gillibrand acts as though, oh, okay, you want to ask a question, and like, so she kind of gives the floor to the girl, and the girl just goes, "I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get some ranch," and reaches behind her and
Oh
grabs the
yeah, I
ranch.
remember that. That was
And
good.
I was just like, that's you're dead. The campaign's over right there. Like the people here don't care what you have to say; they just want their ranch. And I think that it's that failure to connect with the everyday, um, or maybe even an unwillingness to connect with everyday people. Because honestly, Katie Porter might be able to do it better if she was the person on screen that she is off screen. That's a possibility.
Well, I think Matt Walsh kind of talked about this, and I think he made a really good point that needs to be reiterated, which is that Katie Porter doesn't like Trump voters. That was the problem with the question. It was that she was just like couldn't understand the question at first because she's like, why would you bring them up? And then like thinking more about the question, like, yeah, well, of course I hate them. Why are we bringing this up? Oh, gosh, you know. um, and well, to me, okay, getting back to kind of the argument you made about messaging versus the actual content of what they're trying to argue, I think this hurts them. I mean, I think the very emptiness of the Democrat platform, because again, I just see it as an anti-conservative, anti-Republican platform. I don't see that as for anything, unless illegal immigration, open borders, free stuff that we can't pay for, letting criminals out of jail, decarceration, encouraging homelessness. I mean, I can only think of negative things. And I'm not sure what the Democrat platform was. I mean, even in the 90s, you had, Clinton who's trying to appeal to the middle class, and I think succeeding with that kind of messaging. And I mean, it's a good argument to make, but I mean, I don't see either. I mean, I don't, the machine will work do what it can for, Katie Porter. And this next guy will talk about Jay Jones, but I don't know. I mean, they're discrediting themselves, right? I mean, surely maybe they'll get away with it maybe one or two more elections, but this stuff is, kind of becoming passe very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the kind of visceral reaction to conservative Americans that we see on the left is deeper than just Trump hatred. In a way, I think it's a spiritual anger in the sense that I'm very much convinced that sort of intelligent Democrats, intelligent people on the left really had arrived at a place by say 2014 where sort of they went all Fukuyama, right? They thought that history had in fact ended, and that the moral arc of history will inexorably play out, and what that meant to them was just the incremental acceptance of every left perspective on everything. And I think that what we see in this visceral reaction to anybody who has a significantly different viewpoint is really just a reflex that is a product of their frustration that history seems to be defying their will. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, well, and it makes you wonder, like, does this nastiness, does this anger, does this hostility, does it all just kind of go back to have they been spoiled by success? Have they been ruined by their success? It's just they haven't ever been challenged on any of their viewpoints, so they just become more and more extreme. Is this just kind of like yeah, just a product of their success, or is it just I mean, I just don't know. I mean, for just a normie leftist, just a normie Democrat that listens to NPR and has just always voted and thought Obama was like the Messiah, these types of people. And, I, I'm I'm trying to figure out what they think. I mean, I guess it's just a lot of misinformation at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't blame them for that hubris.
Yeah.
Because, I think about this a lot. By 20, by the time that the primary started for 2016, name a cultural battle that they had lost. They had won everything. They got
Yeah.
everything they wanted. LGBT rights, abortion on demand, a completely open border, trade deals, climates, it seemed like every single thing they had won. And the right has never been in that position in this country, even during the Reagan era, even during, Nixon. The left had never been in that position, I don't think, in this country. And so I imagine, pretty, it's easy to get pretty high on your own supply when you've won everything. And then to watch it slip away, it has
Yeah,
to
well,
be.
I mean, but this is the time where the elder statesman comes in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what was t funny? I think about the interview with Hunter Biden, and he just like trashes all the kind of like premier Democrat policy people and Cargill, or wait, is it Cargill? Who's the guy who did Clinton's campaign and Axelrod and
Carville, James
Carville, there we go.
Carville.
Carville, and then you have Axelrod, and he's like, "Oh, all these dinosaurs, they don't know what's going on. They just got lucky." And I don't know, that was like I really liked Hunter Biden at that moment.
So
Um,
did I.
well, I mean, because he's right, though. I mean, it's just I think you have a lot of these kind of. I mean, just like you have boomer conservatives, they get misty-eyed about Reagan and tend to like not really see what's going on right now. I mean, I think you have it on the left as well. They, kind of maybe Clinton Democrats or whatever you want to call it, but Obama Democrats who get misty-eyed about the past and again fail to see what's in front of them. And basically, you just got a bunch of crazies taking the microphone, and I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of either yelling at their staff. But okay, I want to move on to this next guy because it's kind of related. This guy Jay Jones, who's running for attorney general over in Virginia. Again, I think, well, there was early voting and he's actually won quite a few votes and all that already. But it came out that he's just a really terrible, kind of psychopathic person. I think his defenders claim that he was referencing a joke from The Office. So I saw that like, huh. Uh, when he said he wanted to see his opponents and their children dead and all these horrible things. So, I don't know. Maybe Adam, maybe we're not getting this. Are conservatives just dummies that can't appreciate John Jay's biting humor? Or I mean, is this just another instance of Democrats just having crazy people represent them?
I'm of two minds on this.
Oh, okay.
What he said in these texts was clearly awful. Um, that said, and I always try to think about this with these things, if if I have said things in private group chats that
No, not you,
them
Adam.
if you took them out and decontextualized them, I would not be proud of them, and they would probably uh, present they would probably be misinterpreted, and of course they'd be misinterpreted because they're out of context. I'm not saying there's a context that's right to wish somebody's children are dead. I'm just saying that we need to take some generosity here. That said, whether or not he meant it, it's useful for his opponents, right? And certainly, if the situations were reversed, the left would not decide not to push on that soft spot. And I think that the reason that conservatives have good reason to push on that soft spot is whether or not Jones meant it. There are people who are espousing violence who really do mean it. And a lot of the time they do shrug it off in this way. It's a metaphor. Of course, I don't mean it. But obviously, at this point, we're past the point where responsible people will say these types of things. After Kirk, after two attempted Trump assassinations, the congressional baseball game, Kavanaugh, the list goes on. And so, whether or not this one individual meant those things, I can't know that. I don't know someone's intent. What I do know is that there is a larger movement that seems designed to provoke violence through speech. And given that that is a potentially deadly political project, it's all fair game. Anybody who says stuff like this, particularly people who are running for public office, need to be held to account.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm a little bit like you, Adam. I mean, I don't like winning this way. Okay. I mean, I understand the strategy here. Um, but I feel like, okay, you're gonna pick on his texts. They're obviously bad. I mean, it could be made in jest. I don't know. It's just terrible timing with all that's happened in the news but I mean, part of me just feels I wish we could win on the merits of these things. There's actually been another story. I mean, so have you been following the stuff about Hassan Piker?
Not really, no. I know who it
Okay,
is.
well, I mean, I haven't either. I didn't really know him until like I guess after Charlie Kirk's murder. Like he's a blogger. He's on Twitch. Apparently, the dude's just spouting off about politics like 10 hours a day or something ridiculous. Anyway, he did an interview with Ross Douthat on his podcast. And apparently, he's kind of heralded as this kind of new type of leftist, this new type of spokesperson. And the guy's an idiot. I mean, apparently he's Cenk Uyghur's the whatever young Turk dude. He's a relative of that guy.
Oh,
And
really? I
so
didn't know that.
okay, so yeah, so he's like a Turkish young guy. Well, I mean, young man. He's probably, I guess, in his 30s at this point, or late 20s, 30s. Um, and just leftist sloganeering, not much thought to it, a lot of word salads. I mean, Douthit just kind of asks some pretty simple questions and just gets them in a corner and just shows like the contradictions abound. And this guy really does advocate for violence. This dude is like a Marxist and doesn't, just thinks that it's never been tried or whatever. The real Marxism hasn't been tried. So just kind of a dummy. I don't know. I'm not just very unimpressive. And he said some horrible things about Charlie Kirk, like, oh, he should have been shot. Oh, he's a fascist, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of those kind of nasty things. And it's not his stupidity. It's not like his offensive comments or anything that has brought him down, but like him putting like some kind of electrical collar on his dog that's behind him when he does his show. And and like I want this guy to go down, not like taken away as a free speech martyr or whatever. I mean, yeah, it's awful, but okay, I guess he can say what he wants. I don't know how he has an audience and why people like it, but okay. I want him to go down just because he's a dummy and because he's offensive or whatever. But why he goes down is going to be because of his dog. Um, and maybe I'm making like a stretch here, but Jay Jones, he should lose because he espouses bad ideas. I feel like the Democratic Party has really failed in a lot of areas. A lot of blue states have just been really suffering. And, they're all migrating over here to Texas. And I think they should, kind of be punished at the voting booth for that. Um, but I think just kind of clinging to this or that comment, um, and say, oh, he's a psychopath. I mean, dude, I don't know. I mean, can we nail him on the issues, or am I just being a boomer con right now by thinking this way?
I wouldn't accuse you of that. But it seems to me at the root of what you're talking about is this question of, okay, the conservatives, people on the right are coming to the other side of this era of probably 7 or 8 years of quote unquote cancellation.
Sure.
Um, And this is a real question is, do we go for retribution or do we model, do we be the change that we want to see in the world, and sort of take the high road, so to speak. Um, my thinking is if if there was any acknowledgement from the people who were leading the movements that were doing so much of the cancellation, that was overreach, that maybe this wasn't the right way to go about addressing people who disagree with them, then I'd be less inclined to retribution. But they haven't expressed any of that. Nobody has, to my knowledge, and so I really do think, sadly, this is just product of where we are politically. We need to make it hurt. And if that means taking a guy out because he keeps his dog on the treadmill while he does his podcast, okay.
You remember, like, it reminds me too of Fauci. So
Of what?
Fauci is an
Oh,
awful,
right.
awful person, total shill for pharmaceuticals, pushed a bunch of horrible things, and I think the dude should be in jail, at the very least. And the thing that probably annoys most people about Fauci, if they are annoyed at Fauci and not having their little votive candles, is what he did with beagles. Remember that? Like, and it's like,
Yes,
oh, he
yes.
tortured these beagles, and I guess for some random experiment, and it's just like it was kind of a cruel experiment and didn't seem to yield very helpful data or anything. And yeah, it's the dog, man. It's always the dog.
Yeah. I mean, Mike, people should talk to Michael Vick. Um, you know, although he's kind of been rehabilitated lately. Uh, I don't know, how I can't remember where he's coaching now, but I think he's coaching college football somewhere again, which is really, I mean, I'm not gonna apologize for what he did to animals, but at the same time, I do think that might be a sign that, you know, we could still regain some humanity, that 10 years on after one of these major wipeouts in terms of public persona and credibility, that somebody might be able to regain a livelihood. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, oh, maybe that's what it is. And maybe you can tell I'm not really a super dog person. I love dogs, but not as much as probably a lot of people do.
I don't
And
like dogs.
oh, okay. I like people more than dogs. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, maybe it's just like what it represents. If you're cruel to a dog and, dogs are loyal and, they're cute and all that, but if you kind of treating your dog like that, what does that say? How do you treat like actual people or, actually, the dude Hassan Piker made a statement. Like, this is how you can tell he's an idiot. Okay, he makes a statement in defense, just calling his dog a slave. He can do what he wants with his slave. It's his property. Like, he just says all the dumb things to kind of defend what he said. I mean, he could have like easily explained it away, and probably would have been given a pass. But he like kind of digs. I don't know. He just digs his own grave. I don't care.
I didn't know
Whatever.
that
Hassan.
he
I think
said
he's
those
kind of
things.
done.
That's shocking. To, you know, say the dog's his slave or things like that. That's
Yeah, well,
strange.
I don't know if I think he was trying to make kind of like a Marxist tie-in with that. It was weird. I mean, that's he's just being quoted saying this in an interview. And I think again, I just think, well, you know what? Maybe your article is becoming a little bit passé, Adam. I mean, I thought Democrats were good at messaging, but they
Yeah.
don't seem that good. At least the younger generation of Democrats seem terrible at messaging.
I I think that I see your point, and it certainly would not surprise me to see something that I wrote become passe in 48 hours. But
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
will, I'll say that I really do think that Democrats are supreme at messaging.
Mm.
Um, and I think that is most evident in how quickly talking points become a mantra. Not even for people who are interested in politics or politically motivated. How easily these things roll off the tongue. Trans women are women. Um, you know, uh, no human being is illegal. More recently, it fascinates me. The universities, as you know, in Texas, are kind of being reined in by the legislature, and it's clear that the faculty and administration at my university are greatly dismayed by this and experiencing some uncertainty that they haven't felt before. But rather than talk about what's going on, they've already sort of developed this formula for talking about what's happening
Hmm.
without talking about what's happening. And so every conversation will begin with, in these very, very difficult, unfortunate times, in this time of uncertainty, and we never talk about like, well, what's uncertain about it? Where's the uncertainty coming from? Why did the uncertainty that you're talking about arrive? It's it really is masterful messaging. They're very good at talking about what they want to talk about without talking
Where
about
does that come from, Adam? I mean, is that just like what the universities teach people? Is that what my people, is that what K through 12 schools are teaching? Like, where do people pick this up? I mean, because you're right. They always do that. Oh, in these trying times, we want to be sensitive. Da, 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 da. It's always this cloaked and I mean, I know the euphemisms for sure, reproductive health care, gender
right,
affirmation. The euphemisms are commonplace, but just even the framing of just like, oh, we live in dark times, and then all of a sudden they're not dark times because Biden's president or Obama's president, and you the kind of the normal person, like I feel just the same as yesterday, man. I don't know. I mean, where does
well,
it come from, though?
um at least in the universities, I think it comes from class anxiety, for lack of a better term. And uh, this is fresh in my mind now because I was reading something by Lester Fable, and he quotes Pierre Badiou on this topic. But Badiou is talking about taste as a class mark. In other words, like knowing what art you should like if you are a member of the elite or bourgeois, knowing what ideas you should hold. And I think that that's where it comes from. And Badiou's big insight at the end of that passage is he says, even more important than having good taste to signify your membership in an elite caste is to know what is in bad taste. In other words, to know what you shouldn't like.
Mm,
And I think in all of this dancing around of, oh, in these very uncertain dark times, if they were confident in their position, then they would mention exactly what they're talking about. But they're
hmm.
not. And this is really a means to signify, what we commonly call virtue signaling. I'm a good person. I know that all of this stuff is awful. And this is a rhetorical technique to signify my virtue, without having to get into the dirty business of political arguments.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Um, well, I want to move on. Okay, let's talk about two big pieces of news. I guess we don't have to spend too much time on it. Which is okay. So there's Trump's peace deal in Israel, which is great. I'm not an expert, and I actually want to just see what happens. I hope it works out. That'd be great if it does. But I want to get to because I've been talking about this on the episodes, and I think we've all been writing about it. So Trump declares Antifa not just a terrorist organization, but an international terrorist organization. And it looks like he'll probably use the Insurrection Act to get past these rogue judges and these rogue mayors and all this kind of clashing, so that he can clean up these dysfunctional cities and he can use ICE to deport more illegals. Um, I want to know how this goes, and I don't know. How do you feel? Are you hopeful that this effort to clean up the streets, restore order, close the border, deport the illegals, is this gonna finally work? Am I being impatient, or I don't know? I mean, I guess I have my doubts about some of this stuff.
Yeah, I do too, and I
Okay.
think I think you put your finger on the major issue of the moment, and that is, you know, um, will a president whose agenda opposes the agenda of the quote unquote regime, be allowed to exercise the full powers of the executive branch. And that's an open question. I think certainly in the first Trump administration, what we saw is that the the institutional left has a veto on the public will. Um, and I don't know, I'm not an attorney. I don't know the legality of these things, but it does seem that that veto power that they exercise is used pretty capriciously. Um, and there's a federalist component to this. And I think that what we see is in this struggle over local power and federal or national power, that when the left is in a position of power, then the states do not have any rights and independent of the federal government. But then it switches, right? Once conservatives or the right is in power, well, all of a sudden, wait, did I get that backwards? When the right is in power, the states have no power. When the left is in power,
States do have power, right? Yeah.
I've got it backwards. But my point is this: is that take marijuana for example. When Barack Obama is in the White House, there's federal laws against marijuana, right?
Uh-huh.
Uh, but Colorado can say, "Hey, we're not going to follow federal law." And the response to that is, okay, states have rights.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Los Angeles can say, we know that there's federal immigration laws, but we're a sanctuary city, and the federal response to that is okay. And now we have Trump in charge, and Trump says, well, I want to exercise the federal law, and all of a sudden these states claim the power, that's invalid somehow, and that Trump is supposed to stop at that point and not impose his will. I've said this in a very convoluted way, so I'm
No,
sorry, but
I'm glad you bring up that point because that's exactly how I'm thinking about this. Conservatives are very much states' rights people. Again, when we're not in charge or our party's not in charge. And now I think a lot of us are like, Trump, just take over. um,
well,
well,
that is where I am. I think that the abuses of power that we've seen by the federal government over the last 10 years, I don't think that it was our side who violated the norms and standards.
yeah.
I think it was their side, and it's not our business to reestablish the norms and standards that they destroyed.
Well,
And
I mean, I think it's similar to the cancellation stuff. It's like, oh, the right is canceling the left now. Like, y'all are doing different things than we did. Y'all are being canceled for legitimate reasons. We were never, we're not calling for the death of people. We're not making threats. We're not inciting violence. And they just kind of make this false equivalence. And same thing with the states' rights, like you were saying. It's like, well, okay, there are legitimate reasons to overrule, these states' rights or whatever, and invoke an insurrection act or use the power of the executive, because you guys are not like deporting illegals. That's just the law. You're protecting criminals. So I don't. So I guess that would be my response to people who say, "Well, I thought we were about states' rights and local control, but now we just want Trump to take over." Well, I mean, I'm for local control and state control and, kind of keeping things subsidiarity, whatever it's called, right? I'm for all that if everybody's playing by the rules and following the law. But of course, like if you have one side not following the rules and just kind of abusing their authority or their power or their media presence, no, then I mean the subsidiarity has to take, the back seat to just law and order, right?
there's, I think the framing of the ICE protests by the media, of course,
Mm-hmm.
is that this is a gesture of human empathy and blah blah blah. Uh, I think that we need to reframe this, and essentially, the essence of those ICE protests is what they are protesting is the right of the federal government to enforce federal laws. And I think that that's once you understand the protests in that way, that's a really radical position. There's no discussion of changing the law,
Yeah.
right? The premise is just the law is what it is, but you can't enforce it. And what is the point of laws if not to be enforced? And that's, why Trump needs to win that fight is because laws are passed to be enforced. You don't like the law, you change the law. But you don't make laws that you're going to ignore, or else the entire power of law unravels. And that's what they're pushing in Chicago. That's what they're pushing in Los Angeles. That's what they're pushing in Portland.
I'm just struck by just how, again, this is my word of the day, unimpressive these, freedom fighter types are. Like Brandon Johnson, uh, Karen Bass. I mean, these mayors are dumb. They're just dumb. And it's just, and like, or Jacob Fry over in Minneapolis. I mean, it's just, they're unimpressive. And I'm just like, how do they win this type of support? And to me, it's just like, I guess it's just when you're in that woke environment and the left is just preeminent, man, you can just climb to the top pretty easily. But here they are trying to pose and create this opposition and defend just kind of the worst of the worst. And
Well,
it boggles my
it
mind.
validates the all of the ancient critiques of democracy, right? You're familiar with Plato's position and Cicero and Polybius and all these people
Whoa,
said,
they're just demagogues or what?
well, no, the problem with democracy is that when you put the people in power, the people in general are pretty mediocre. They are
Ugh.
mid, as the kids say. And so once you grant the power to determine your rulers to mediocre people, it's no surprise that you end up with mediocre rulers. And every regime obviously has its sort of Achilles heel, but this is the Achilles heel of democracy is that it it enacts a leveling, and it allows people to rise to positions of power that they're fundamentally unequipped for.
Well, yeah, but I feel like democracy did a better job not so long ago. I mean, just in selecting their leaders. I mean, I would even contest that. I don't even know if these people are really winning their elections legitimately. Okay. Especially when you're talking about Illinois or California or Minnesota. I think a lot of the kind of election integrity stuff becomes a real problem. And you got
I'm
some
not
just
going to sit here and be a party to an election denier's opinionation.
well, and New York's next, right? New York City, you got Mamdani.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't need to go into it. I just kind of, read the articles about it, and Eric Adams pulled out, and so that just leaves Mamdani, Cuomo, and Red Beret,
Mhm.
Sliwa.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, you spent some time in New York. I don't know, you're probably more familiar with the culture, but it just blows my mind. Like these are your choices. You got like the dinosaur, corrupt, nasty Cuomo, and he might actually be a better choice than this kind of cartoon character Marxist, nepo baby, Mamdani. And then we just don't talk about Sliwa because he's not Democrat or something. I like, well, I don't know. Is it a Texan thing? I mean, you're actually not supposed to have like parties involved at local elections. They're supposed to just be kind of elected on individual merits, but I don't know.
That's a thing that is unique to Texas. The
Okay.
way that surprised me when I got here 15 years ago was how um, invisible party affiliation was in local elections a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Um, New York State, this is an underreported. If any journalists are listening to this, a really great underreported story is what's going on in New York. And um, you know, New York is not a blue state. Uh, and I grew up in the western part of New York, about as far away as from New York City as you can get, and I have seen a visceral hatred for the left governance of New York State. And so, in this sense, the state of New York is really kind of a microcosm of the nation. In terms of the geographical distribution of New Yorkers, the left wins power there because they have this dot of New York City that is deep blue. And then you have the left edging out elections in Buffalo, Rochester, and Albany. And the entire rest of the state and most of the people in those three cities I just named despise these people. But they live under the heel of a far leftist government. I think that we're going to see a Republican New York governor very soon because
Hmm.
the people in New York State
Well, what was it?
outside of
Hoke?
those
It's
cities.
Hochul right there. Is Hochul there now? Who she was for, and then Cuomo before her. Lee Zeldin, was he running for
He
governor?
was running, yeah, and he did.
And he did better than people thought he would, but he
Yes,
didn't win.
they haven't had a Republican governor since George Pataki, I think, in the 90s. But it's time because especially, it's a very working class state outside of New York City, and the natives are quite restless there.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure California is similar. I mean, I just kind of marvel at. See, sometimes I'm in my Texas bubble, right? And I'm just used to growth, and I'm used to things being put together, and you know, uh, but yeah, I mean, and then I look at California, and it's losing people, and there's more homelessness, and the middle class like struggles to just pay their rent and have energy, and they have forest fires all the time.
You
And
can't
New York seems pretty
understate
similar to me.
you can't understate the effect of the decline of states like New York and California on the pride of its people. I think that this is a major driver of the growing resistance to left rule in these places. When I grew up, in New York State in the early 80s, we were kind of raised to be like, hey, New York is it. Like we live in the best state in America.
Hmm.
And California, I'm sure, is the same.
Yeah.
And to watch those states for people in them bleed electoral votes, bleed companies, bleed population, it's demoralizing, and people are angry about it. And frankly, probably can't be reversed. But so states like Texas will continue to rise. But there is a sort of emotional dimension to it too.
I mean, I guess, but I mean, this has got to be held by older generations, right? I mean, I would think that younger Californians or younger New Yorkers kind of see the writing on the wall. There's not much opportunity here. Everything's expensive, and you got a bunch of boomers that own all the property, and maybe some random Chinese and other foreign entities kind of owning the property here. And then they just come to Texas. And I wonder if is it like reinforced by media here too? It's like, well, all the movies either take place in New York or California. Do we need more like Texan media? More King of the Hill shows, I guess.
Aren't isn't there a big push to do that now? I think, there's a commercial that airs in Texas, and it's got Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, and they're all like, "Hey, come to Texas to make movies."
Oh,
It's pretty.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, well, yeah, I actually really like it when there are movies or shows about Texas. I mean, Mike Judge is like one of my favorite directors because he films and kind of has that Texan, ethos or whatever. But anyway, and I love my Buc-ee's and I love my Whataburger. Actually, I've been told Whataburger's not as good as it used to be, so I don't know.
I'm
It's
not a
just
huge fan, but then I'm not a native Texan, so
yeah, what are they all Shake Shack or something from New York? Is that the kind of the big burger place?
it probably is down in New York City. Where when I was growing up, in Western New York, we had these great, independent burger places that would just be little establishments on the lake, and they were
Okay.
always fantastic burgers. You can still get them. I'm gonna give a couple of shout out in case anybody's in Western New York. Go to Shaler's or go to Tom Wall's or Don and Bob's. These are all great old burger places.
Okay, good to know. All right, let's move to our final thing here. Give it a little time because it's Columbus Day coming up soon, or Indigenous Cannibal Day, or Texas State Fair Day. Just the Monday in October we get to have off, and I feel like when this day comes up, it's Let's Topple Statues Day, and let's talk about our history and rehash all the polarization that's happened over the last decade. Honestly, it's a pretty new thing. Um, you wrote an article, and who was the co-writer? I want to give him credit too.
Yeah, John Waters.
Uh,
He was a veteran of the first Trump administration,
Okay.
and is my sometimes co-author. We have a number of series that we're working on together.
Okay, cool. So John Waters. So you and him, y'all kind of wrote a nice piece over at Unheard. Um, for those of y'all that are, that read these things, Unheard is like cool. Okay. I was a little bit jealous when I heard of Adam getting published there. Like, oh man, you're with the cool kids now.
No.
Someday I'll be in Unheard someday. Well, because it's British, right? I mean, it's mainly, well, I guess it's both UK and America. Um, and well, but your article, or at least the essay, was really about just kind of Trump's vision for reviving American history, and by doing so, kind of like really trying to hone in on like an American brand, an American identity, kind of an iconic status. He did this as a businessman, a real estate guy. Now he's trying to do this kind of in a presidential capacity. And you have the Hall of, what is it, the Garden of Heroes, and
Yes.
so there are a lot of projects. So, tell me, I got an optimistic white pill feel just by reading it. Is this going to happen, or do you think he has a really good chance of like kind of reshaping the way we think about monuments, and are we going to just kind of revert back to monument toppling?
Um, Hard to say. What I will say is that the idea that John and I are working with is what we call monumentalism,
Yeah,
which by our definition is not about the physical structure. What it is a political orientation. Um, and the function of monumentalism is a recognition that we need to take political action to transmit historical memory into the future. And the way that we do that is through the creation of monuments. Um, I think that the unforgettable images of 2020 2021 of people desecrating uh, statues, monuments of American heroes sticks in most Americans' minds. And it's important to understand what the left is trying to do there. It's not a random expression of rage. What they want, as Barack Obama said, is to fundamentally transform American society. And you can't enact a fundamental transformation if the majority of people think that the thing you're trying to transform is worth saving. And so this is really a strategic and tactical effort to humiliate the American people. Um, and the example that for me is the most vivid example. In June of 2020, I was in my hometown of Rochester, which was all boarded up because there were riots and everything else. Your audience, I'm sure, is familiar with Frederick Douglass, the great American orator, abolitionist, an escaped slave,
yeah.
like iconic American. And you would think, oh, okay, well, they're just targeting statues of people like Thomas Jefferson, awful, awful people who owned slaves. Well, no, in Rochester, New York, the statue of Frederick Douglass got torn down and thrown into the Genesee River. Now, you can either explain that by saying, well, these people are totally ignorant of history, which I think is unlikely. People in Rochester, New York know who Frederick Douglass was. Or you can explain it by the fact that it's not just about condemning the darker aspects of our country's history. It's about wiping it clean. And the way that you do that is to humiliate people, humiliate Americans, make them humiliated for being American. And only then is the fundamental transformation of the nation possible. Only then are people willing to accept the destruction of what they were and what they had. And so the effort to remonumentalize America is a critical counterattack in the effort to eliminate our past and establish this year zero on which the left can really begin in earnest to begin its utopia.
Okay, so no, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm reading this book by Ben Shapiro. It's this new book, Scavenger Lions and Scavengers. And at first I was kind of like, okay, I feel like I've heard a lot of this already, but now it's kind of getting to me, and I think I kind of like it. Just kind of the driving force of the left. Okay, so you talk about, okay, the left wants to remove monuments, not just the offensive ones, but like pretty much all of them, because they want to reconstruct the identity in a totally new way and kind of get utopia going. What I want to know, I mean, and this is, I'm going to put in Shapiro's argument, is like all this is very scavenger like. Okay, it's all built on envy. I mean, is that what's at work here? You would say, like, they don't like Frederick Douglass as well as Jefferson, Washington, all the others, like out of envy. I mean, is it just like, well, we're never going to be like that, so we're just going to tear it down? And I mean, well, and the other side of this is that, and this is also a component of scavengers, they don't build. Like lions build, but the scavengers don't build. Um, they don't build monuments. Like it's not like they're gonna build even like the MLK monument. I don't think they really cared much for, and not in either. It looked like Mao or something. It's kind of a weird statue. Um, but well, and a lot of their art is just kind of ugly. I mean, almost on purpose, like just a fat black woman looking at her phone or something. This seems to be like kind of the leftist art.
Yes.
Or the what is it? The singer, not Whitney Houston, but Tina
Tina
Turner.
Turner. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tina Turner. And, over in Tennessee. I mean, so what's the what's the vision here? That's what I just want to know. It's like, okay, is it just like you're envious, you hate these people, we're never going to be great like this, and is this all a lie anyway? And is it just like a lot of like personal insecurity? And that's what drives this, or is there really actually a plan? Because I don't know what the plan is. So what do you replace this stuff with? Are we just not going to get to have pretty things anymore?
Certainly, these people are envious, but I don't think that that's what's driving this.
Okay.
And the idea that they are not builders, I think, is wrong. Um, and you kind of hinted at it yourself. They do, in fact, build monuments.
Yeah.
And let's cycle through some of them. Okay, so we had Black Lives Matter Plaza, right? We had rainbow pride flag crosswalks across the United States.
Yeah.
We had the statues of rotund black women looking at their phones.
Yeah.
We had
Rotund,
we had
yes.
we had full on idolatry of George Floyd in terms of murals, statues, everything else.
Yeah.
They are building things. Now, what do these things have in common? The thing that they have in common is their capacity to demoralize legacy Americans.
Mm.
Um, and that is like, why George Floyd? Well, because why not? Right? Why can't we elevate? These are icons of the revolution. And so it's not only, the humiliation that they need to achieve to accomplish their fundamental transformation of society is not only executed through what they tear down, it's also continued through what they build. What they build is designed to humiliate. And in essence, what they're doing is memorializing the public's humiliation. And of course, that's a requisite move to this is mass movements 101, right? If
Okay.
whatever we're talking about, Russian communism, Chinese communism, all these forms of totalitarianism, German Nazism, you have to have a humiliated public. And historically, Americans have been very proud people. Um, and this is why they go nuts when a rainbow pride or pride flag crosswalk is ripped up. Because again, history inexorably moves us to the leftist utopia. And, any such imagery is necessarily turning back the clock. And that simply can't happen. That, in and of itself, in their view, is fascism or totalitarianism or whatever you want to call it. And so I try to give these people credit. I try to, I would like to say, oh, it's just envy, it's blind rage, but I think it's a very strategic operation with very clear goals in mind.
Well, I mean, you're probably right because I don't know how popular this stuff is. I mean, I'm sure the diehard Antifa people, yeah, I mean, they might have this idea just like, okay, kind of mass manipulation, kind of propaganda campaign type stuff. I mean, I don't think your typical listener, I mean, they might just say, oh yeah, whatever, Columbus sucks. Yeah, yeah, Washington, just an annoying guy. I don't know. I mean, just to me, it's like how much failure needs to happen because again, I mean, the places where the statue toppling happens in New York, in California, I mean, again, in blue states that or Philadelphia, yeah, like in Pennsylvania, which I guess is purple, but just these blue areas, I would say they're the ones that get kind of monument toppling happy, and they want to do this. Maybe they have the end goal in mind, which is to demoralize their opponents and to kind of rewrite history, and bring about the new age of Aquarius or whatever they're going for. Um, but what I mean, is this just to me? This sounds a little delusional, man. I don't know if toppling monuments like this is going to achieve anything. I mean, and I think it's delusional to think so. I mean, yeah, it's demoralizing, but what? You just put these people in jail, and I mean, it doesn't get too far, does it?
Yeah, I I don't know. You remember during the demonumentalization craze, I believe it was a statue of General Lee that
Okay,
was
yeah,
taken
that was what
down.
Charlottesville or whatever.
Yeah, and you remember that they actually destroyed the statue. They melted it down. And
Yeah,
of course, you're on X and social media. You've seen that we've got high definition video, right, of a red hot face of Lee being melted.
yeah,
You have to ask yourself, who's filming that? Who's doing the destruction? Who's allowing this event to be filmed and why? And I can't think of a reason. If we have to tear down Lee and destroy the statue, I'm pretty sure it was Lee. I may be wrong, but if we have to tear it down, why does the destruction of it need to be publicized? I
hmm.
don't know how to explain that except to sort of explain it as this tactical humiliation. And you're right, like whether or not the sort of year zero thing will succeed, I think if there was a time for it to succeed, it was probably 2021 and
Yeah.
2020. And we've significantly pushed back, but that doesn't mean, we've beat the Hydra here. I think that ultimately I would bank on the fact that most Americans are proud Americans. And, much of what we're talking about here can be explained by the fact that the average citizen of this country saw in 2020 that something had gone much too far. Um,
COVID was a weird time, man.
it was, boy,
uh,
boy, was it.
but do you think, okay, well, but that makes me think, okay, so Trump's monumentalism, as you put it, politically speaking, it's a smart move then, right? I mean, do you think it's going to be popular?
I do.
Okay.
I do. You're probably familiar with this organization called More Monuments that will be they're raising fundraising to create many new monuments. Next 4th of July, they will unveil a 650-foot colossus of George Washington
Yeah, I'm pretty
out,
excited about that.
outside of Austin. I think that there is energy behind this movement. And, who wants to be humiliated? Who wants to be demoralized? Who wants to be embarrassed? There's an appetite for Americans to want to be proud, and we have a lot to be proud of. And, we're tired of being embarrassed for being proud. And, as Trump likes to say, we just can't do it anymore. We can't. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you know what? Let's end on that happy note. I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation. Thank you so much, Adam, for talking with me and gracing
Thank you
us
for
with your
the
pair.
invitation.
Yeah,
I've
no, this
really
is
enjoyed
great,
it.
and I hope to do it again. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe to this podcast as well as our Substack, everymancommentary.substack.com. Please share this episode, give us a 5-star review, and all the things. Until next time, have a wonderful Columbus Day weekend. Read some good books, read about the great men who made this country, including Columbus, and go in peace.